Okay, so take a look at this. You know this building, right?
Of course you do. It's the U.S. Capitol, one of the most powerful symbols of American democracy. But here's the question. What on earth could it have in common with this? A building from a time when emperors ruled the world, not presidents. This is the Pantheon in Rome, an absolute marvel of ancient engineering. And the connection between them? Oh, it's not just cosmetic. It's foundational. In fact, the connection is, well, it's pretty much everything. That huge dome, the columns, the entire idea of it. America's founders were looking straight at Rome when they were dreaming up their new nation. And this wasn't just some casual borrowing of ideas. As historian Caroline Winter puts it, for the founders, Roman influence was like the wallpaper of the world. It was just everywhere, a constant and very deliberate backdrop for the entire American experiment. So let's start with the most obvious evidence, shall we? The buildings themselves. The founders didn't just want to create a new country. They wanted to build a new Rome right there on the Potomac. And they were incredibly specific. The U.S. Capitol, with that grand dome, it's a direct echo of the Pantheon. The White House, it channels the work of the Roman architect Vitruvius. Get this, even Thomas Jefferson's Virginia Capitol was basically a copy of a Roman temple in France. You see, these weren't just meant to be pretty buildings. They were declarations. And that declaration was political, big time. Choosing this neoclassical style was a powerful statement. It was a conscious rejection of the ornate, frilly palaces of European kings. They were effectively saying, nope, we are not a monarchy. We are a republic, built on the ideals of order, reason, and civic duty. Okay, so that's the architecture. But let's peel back a layer and look at the government itself. Because if the buildings look Roman on the outside, you can bet the political machinery has some Roman parts on the inside. The founders were frankly obsessed with an old Roman idea called the mixed constitution. They were terrified of tyranny, and this theory basically says that any pure form of government, whether it's ruled by one person, a few elites, or all the people, is eventually going to get corrupt and collapse. The secret to stability? You had to blend all three. So how did they do it? Well, the Romans balanced their monarch-like consuls, their aristocratic senate, and their democratic assemblies. The American founders looked at that and they adapted it. They created their own unique balance, a powerful president in the executive branch, Congress as the legislative branch, and then, here's their big innovation, an independent judicial branch with the Supreme Court. It wasn't a copy, it was an evolution that created this whole new system of separated powers. But the influence goes even deeper, right into the DNA of the American legal system. This is an inheritance you can't really see, but trust me, it affects every single citizen. Let's just trace one of our most fundamental rights, habeas corpus. You know, the right not to be locked up without a good reason. Its journey starts way back in ancient Rome, with a rule that basically meant produce the person, to protect people from being unlawfully detained. From there, it travels through the Magna Carta in England, and then lands directly in the U.S. Constitution. And this isn't some modern theory. Legal scholars have been tracing this line for centuries. This article from all the way back in 1934 says that while a lot of people point to the Magna Carta, the true fountainhead of this whole principle is Roman law. The very categories we use for our laws show their Roman roots. What the Romans called jus civile, the law for citizens, became the basis for our civil law. Their idea of jus naturale, or natural law, evolved directly into the inalienable rights in the Declaration of Independence. Even the right to appeal a verdict, that traces back to a Roman concept. The language of American justice, in a lot of ways, still speaks Latin. So we've got Roman buildings, Roman government structures, and Roman law. But to really forge a national identity, the founders knew they also needed Roman symbols. Once you start looking, you see them everywhere. The bald eagle, the ultimate symbol of America, it was also the standard the Roman legions carried into battle to represent their power. Then there's the fasces, that bundle of rods around an axe you see on old dimes and in the House of Representatives. In Rome, it symbolized state power, the idea of strength in unity. Even the Statue of Freedom on top of the Capitol dome is modeled on Minerva, the Roman goddess of wisdom. And this influence is literally written into the nation's official vocabulary. The mottos on the Great Seal of the United States are pure Latin. E pluribus unum, out of many, one. Novus ordo seclorum, a new order of the ages. Just think about that. When the founders wanted to declare their huge ambitions to the world, they chose the language of Rome to do it. But And this is a really important but. The founders didn't just admire Rome, they also studied its downfall. They saw Rome as a mirror, reflecting not only what a republic could achieve, but also how spectacularly it could fail. This relationship with Rome also has a darker, more complex side. Take a look at this sculpture from the U.S. Capitol. The depiction of the Native American chief here is modeled directly on how the Romans showed conquered peoples on their monuments. So America didn't just borrow Rome's ideals of liberty, it also borrowed its symbols of conquest. Ultimately, the founders were students of Rome, not blind followers. As James Madison argued, they knew the dangers all too well. They studied how political factions, huge economic inequality, and the strain of an expanding empire tore the Roman Republic apart and led to civil war and emperors. Their entire system of checks and balances was a deliberate attempt to engineer safeguards against that exact fate, to build a republic that could last where Rome had failed. And that leaves us with a really powerful, lingering question. America was built in Rome's image, a grand experiment in republican government, but with modifications designed to prevent its collapse. But Rome still fell. So when we look at our own society today, we have to ask ourselves, were those modifications enough? The echo of Rome is all around us, not just as a foundation, but maybe, just maybe, as a permanent warning.